We're going to be spending a little bit of time in Illustrator, and I'm going to give you an overview about how you can use Illustrator. Now, this is no means going to be an extensive dive into Illustrator because it is a very robust program and there are tons of things that you can do. But I did want to give you an overview and just show you how to use the ins and outs of Illustrator since it allows us to easily create vector graphics. To start off, we need to know what the difference is between vector and raster graphics. In this document right here, I have two identical images of palm trees. The one on the right is a vector graphic. The one on the left is a raster image or raster-based graphic. When we view this image at 100%, as you can see, the images look identical. But the difference is that vector graphics are resolution independent, which means that the lines are mathematically calculated. When we change the size of the image, all that happens is the math has to reconfigure itself and recalculate. This is different from a raster-based graphic, which is tied to the resolution at which it is created. Let me show you the difference. I'm going to go ahead and use my zoom tool, and I'm going to zoom in on these images. Now, as you can see, as we start to zoom in, I'm currently zoomed at about 336%. The image on the right retains its crisp, clean lines, where the image on the left starts to get a little bit chunky and it just doesn't look quite as good. Let me zoom in a ton on the vector-based graphic. Now I'm zoomed in at 1600%, and if we look at the edges of this shape, they still remain crisp and clean. We have no loss of resolution or quality. If we scroll over to the image on the left, which is our raster-based graphic, you'll see that there's a considerable difference. The raster-based graphics does not look nearly as good. It looks very chunky, and the edges are not smooth at all. What's happening is we're stretching the pixel grid. So the pixel grid is only going to be adequate up to its maximum size. Once we go beyond that size, we start to get a deterioration in quality or pixelization. Vector graphics do not have this problem, as it doesn't matter what size the zoom value or the scaling of the image is, because they're mathematically calculated, the math just recalculates and they're always going to look beautiful, clear, and crisp. Now, each particular file type has its own uses. Vector graphics tend to be great for line art, logos, and more simple types of drawings. Raster images are going to really shine when we're dealing with images that have millions of colors or photographs. These types of things cannot be created in the same way as vector-based graphics. Illustrator allows us to work with both raster and vector graphics, but the whole purpose of Illustrator is being able to create and modify vector-based graphics. If we use this tool, which is called the Direct Selection tool, this will allow us to access the vector-based points and Bezier handles. So if I click on my vector-based shape, you can see that I have access to these points. These are the Bezier points. They're called anchor points. Every anchor point has the ability to have two adjoining handles. The handles allow us to reform or reshape the underlying path. Knowing how to manipulate and utilize the Bezier anchor points and the handles will give you a lot of power in controlling your vector graphics. And I will give you an overview about how we can do this. But I did want to just show you the difference between vector and raster-based graphics before we move on.